I want to start today's deep dive by putting a pebble in your shoe.
Oh,
It's a philosophical pebble, the kind of paradox that if you really let it sit there, might actually keep you up at 3 in the morning.
I do love a good 3 a.m. existential crisis. Lay it on me. What do you have for us?
Okay, so look at a pretty standard theological premise. It's found in most monotheistic traditions. We have a creator, God, who is defined as being all-powerful, omnipotent,
Right, the starting point.
and crucially, fully self-sufficient, meaning he has everything, he is everything, owns everything, and requires absolutely nothing from anyone or anything to sustain his existence.
No.
He is, by definition, complete.
That is the standard definition, yes, absolutely.
So here's the pebble, here's the paradox. If this being needs nothing, why on earth does he demand worship?
Ah, yes, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is, because logically, think about it. Demand stems from a lack, from a need. If I ask you for $5, it's because I don't have $5.
Right, there's a deficit.
Exactly. If I ask you for a compliment, it's because my ego is feeling a little fragile and I need a boost. But if a being has infinite wealth and infinite glory, what could worship possibly add?
Does our praise increase his glory?
Right. And if it doesn't add anything, why is it the central axis of human existence in these religious texts? Why make it the #1 rule if the rule benefits the ruler in absolutely no way?
Is it just some kind of cosmic ego trip? Or is there something much, much deeper going on?
Exactly. Is it just for show?
Well, that specific tension, that apparent contradiction between God's absolute independence and his command for us to worship, that is the very subject of the text we are breaking down today.
I'm glad to hear it.
And I'm really excited about this one because it's dense, but it completely flips the script on how we're conditioned to view reality.
So let's introduce the source. We are doing a deep dive into a theological treatise. The title is Al-Ibada Bain Ihtiyaj al-Lafz wa Istina al-Arab.
Which is a bit of a mouthful in the original Arabic, I will admit.
It is, but the English translation, it just sets the stage perfectly. It translates to worship between the servant's need and the Lord's self-sufficiency. The author is Mostafa Hussein Awad.
And that title really gives away the game, doesn't it? It frames the entire discussion as a relationship between two polar opposites.
Need on one side.
And self-sufficiency on the other. It's a spectrum, and we're at one end and the creator's at the other.
So let's define our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
If we strip away all the academic language, what are we trying to figure out for you, the listener?
Our mission is to unpack the mechanics of this relationship. We want to move way past the surface level, the whole do this ritual, get this reward idea.
Right.
We don't understand the why. The text argues that worship isn't a transaction. It's not a service you render to God like you'd pay a consultant for their time.
So it's not a tax, it's not cosmic rent.
It is not a tax. It's a mechanism, a system entirely designed for the human's benefit. The initial aha moment here, and the text hits us with this right away, is that worship solves a fundamental structural problem for the human being.
So, spoiler alert for everyone listening.
Yeah.
It's not that God needs the applause.
Not at all.
It's that we desperately need to clap. Is that what we're saying?
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Yeah.
But it's so much more existential than just applause. It's about how we are built. It's about the very structure of reality. And honestly, it's about survival.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If we are going to talk about the relationship between these two parties, the Lord and the servant, we have to define our terms properly. And the text uses some very specific Arabic terms for this. I want to get into those because they seem to carry so much more weight than just the English words God and man.
They absolutely do. These terms are the foundational pillars of the whole argument. Let's start with the creator. The text zeroes in on the concept of istinga.
Istina. Okay, break down the etymology for us. What are we really looking at here?
Well, the simple translation is self-sufficiency or independence. But we have to be really careful here because in English, independence can just mean, you pay your own rent and you don't call your parents for money.
Right. I'm an independent contractor.
Yeah.
It's a functional term.
Exactly. It's relative. But in Islamic theology, when God is referred to as Al-Ghani the rich or the independent, it means he is ontologically self-sustaining.
Ontologically. Okay, so in his very being, not just in his possessions.
Right. It's not that he just has a lot of stuff.
Mm.
He is the source of existence itself.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't rely on gravity or time or space or matter to exist because he's the one who created gravity, time, space, and matter.
Mm.
And he most definitely does not rely on the opinions or the actions of his creation.
This is a really important distinction to make because when we think of rich or powerful people on Earth, let's take, I don't know, a CEO of a massive tech company, they seem independent, but are they really?
Not in this sense. Not even close. That CEO is fundamentally dependent on customers buying the product. He's dependent on the stock market. He's dependent on his supply chains, on his employees showing up to work.
Right.
If everyone collectively decided to stop buying his product, his richness evaporates. His status is external. It's granted to him by others.
Whereas Al-Ghani implies a richness that is internal, it's intrinsic, it's unshakable.
Precisely. And the text cites a very, very famous Hadith Qudsi to hammer this point home. This is a narration where God is speaking directly in the first person.
Okay, so this is coming right from the source, so to speak.
As direct as it gets. And the quote is just, well, it's staggering in its bluntness. It says, like, "Oh, my servants, you can never do me any harm, nor can you do me any good."
That is incredibly blunt. There's no ambiguity there.
It just strips away the human ego immediately. We have this tendency to think our actions have these massive cosmic consequences for God. You know, we think, oh, I prayed today, I did God a solid.
I did him a favor. Or the opposite. I rebelled today. I really stuck it to the man upstairs.
Right, like we're negotiating some kind of leverage. I'll be good if you do this for me. And this text is saying, no, you didn't even ripple the water. The ocean is the ocean, regardless of whether you throw a tiny pebble in it or not.
The source material uses a visualization here that I found really helpful to grasp the sheer scale of this idea. It involves all of humanity.
Yes, this is such a powerful image. The text asks you to imagine the very first human being who ever lived, Adam, effectively, and the very last human being who will ever be born, trillions of years in the future, if humanity lasts that long.
So we're talking billions upon billions of people.
Billions. And then add the unseen beings in Islamic cosmology. Throw them in the mix, too. Now imagine every single one of them, countless trillions of entities, suddenly had a heart as pure and pious as the most righteous saint who ever lived.
Okay. So total world peace. 100% devotion, no sin, no crime, just pure, unadulterated worship from every single atom of the conscious universe.
Exactly. Every single being is a saint. The text then says, it would add nothing to God's kingdom, not an atom's worth of increase.
Wow. Just wow.
It wouldn't make him more God. It wouldn't increase his power, his glory, his wealth. It would change nothing for him.
And I'm guessing the reverse is true as well.
Exactly. Flip it on its head. Imagine if the first of them and the last of them, humans and jinn, every single one, were as wicked and corrupt as the most evil heart among them.
Absolute rebellion, total atheism, utter chaos.
Just absolute anarchy against the heavens. The text says it would subtract nothing from his kingdom.
That really messes with the human ego, doesn't it? Because everything in our human experience is transactional. It's based on cause and effect.
Completely.
If everyone stops voting for a politician, he loses his power. If everyone stops watching a TV show, it gets canceled. Its existence depends on our attention.
Right. Human power is given by others.
Okay.
It's contingent. But divine power is intrinsic to the self. God's greatness is a locked-in constant. It doesn't fluctuate based on our spiritual polling data.
The text also references the Quran on this point, specifically a passage from Surah Ad-Dariyat regarding this provider dynamic.
Yes, that's another key piece of evidence. The verse effectively states that God does not want provision from his creation. He doesn't want to be fed. He is the provider. He is Arazak.
Which seems so obvious to a modern listener, you know, of course God doesn't eat a sandwich. But in the historical context of when these ideas first appeared, that's a revolutionary statement.
It's absolutely massive. You have to remember, ancient pagan religions were often based on this idea of symbiosis. The gods were powerful, yes, but they were also needy. They had desires, jealousies, and appetites.
Right, you had to sacrifice the bull to feed the god, so the god would have the energy to bring the rain.
It was a codependent relationship. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. The gods needed human worship to maintain their status or power.
So it was a transaction.
A clear transaction. This text establishes a completely different model. God is the source, always and forever the source, never the recipient of need. He is the one setting the table, not the one sitting at it waiting to be served.
Okay, so that sets the stage for party A in this relationship. The absolutely independent Lord is Stina. Now we have to turn the mirror on ourselves. Party B us. The text calls us the servant, or the abed.
And here, the defining characteristic is the polar opposite. It's iftikhar.
Iftikhar, which means?
It means intrinsic poverty, or maybe more accurately, absolute and perpetual need.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate for a second here. Poverty is a really strong word. I think most people listening, especially if they have a good job, a full fridge, and a healthy retirement account, they wouldn't describe themselves as living in poverty. They feel pretty self-sufficient.
And that's financial wealth. That's societal standing. The text isn't talking about that at all. It's talking about existential poverty. The author peels back the layers of what actually keeps us alive from one moment to the next.
Right.
Just think about it biologically. How long can you survive without air?
A few minutes, maybe 4 if I'm a trained freediver, which I'm not.
And how long without water?
A few days, maybe?
How long without the fundamental laws of physics holding your atoms together?
Not even a nanosecond.
That is Iftikhar. That is our state. We are structurally dependent beings. The text paints a picture of us being like a deep-sea diver, totally reliant on an airline connected to the surface. We feel independent because the air is flowing consistently. We can swim around, we can look at the coral, we can explore. But the moment that line is cut, the moment the creator stops sustaining the heartbeat or the neural synapse, we just cease to function.
I see. So even the billionaire is existentially poor in this sense because he cannot purchase his next heartbeat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He can't bribe his cells to stop mutating. He can't negotiate with gravity to take a day off. The text argues that human beings are, by their very definition, needy. We didn't create ourselves, we don't sustain ourselves moment to moment, and we certainly don't control the spin of the earth that gives us day and night.
It's a very humbling perspective. It basically says that our sense of independence is an illusion maintained by a constant, uninterrupted stream of provision that we usually take for granted and ignore.
Completely.
Yeah.
We are vessels that constantly need filling.
So this is the core dynamic. We have the absolute rich on one side and the absolute poor on the other. Where do they meet? What's the bridge?
That is the definition of worship in this text. Worship is the bridge. It is the mechanism, the designated point of contact, where absolute need intentionally plugs in to the absolute source.
So worship isn't payment for services rendered. It's plugging in your device.
Ideally, yes. It's the conscious acknowledgement of that reality. When the absolute poor connects with the absolute rich, the flow of benefit is entirely one way. It flows downwards, from the source to the needy.
That reframes the whole demand for worship I started with. It stops sounding like a demand from a king for tribute. It sounds more like a charging station demanding a phone connect to it.
That is a very apt analogy.
It's not because the station needs the phone's data or anything. It's because the phone is about to die.
That's perfect. If a charging station had a voice and it yelled at you, "Hey, plug into me," it's not because the station is lonely or needs validation. It's because your battery is at 1% and you're about to shut down completely.
And if you choose not to plug in, the charging station is perfectly fine. It's a wall of electricity. You, on the other hand, are the one who goes dark.
You go dark. And this reframes the entire concept of religious obligation. It shifts it from being a burden, I have to do this for God, to being a lifeline. Thank God I get to do this for me.
This is a really good segue, actually, because we keep using this word worship. And I think for a lot of people, that word just carries so much baggage. It sounds dusty. It sounds like, just ritual.
Prayer rugs, rosaries, incense, chanting in a language you don't understand.
Right. Is that all the text is talking
Yeah.
about? Just performing these specific rituals?
No, and this is such a crucial distinction that the author makes. He draws on the definition given by the famous medieval scholar Ibn Taymiyyah. The text insists that we need to move way beyond just the narrow, ritual definition of worship.
Okay.
Worship, or ibadah, in this text is defined as a comprehensive term.
Comprehensive how? What does that encompass?
It includes everything, and I mean literally everything, that Allah loves and is pleased with.
Okay, give me the scope of that. What falls under that umbrella?
It includes sayings and actions. It includes the outward things, for sure, like prayer and fasting and charity. But just as importantly, it includes the inward things, the states of the heart.
Like what? What's an inward act of worship?
Patience, gratitude, sincerity, trust, honesty, kindness to your parents,
Yes.
fulfilling a promise you made.
So wait, if I'm stuck in rush hour traffic and I actively choose to be patient instead of laying on the horn and screaming because I believe God loves the quality of patience, that's an act of worship.
That is ibadah. That is a moment of connection.
Right.
If you smile at your neighbor to brighten their day, not for any personal gain, but just because you think it's a good, God-pleasing act, that is an act of worship.
So it completely dissolves the line between religious life and secular life.
It obliterates it. It makes every single moment a potential connection point. You don't have to be in a mosque or church to be in a state of worship. You can be at your office desk, acting with integrity on a difficult project, and that is worship.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The text breaks down the psychology of worship. It's not just robotic action. You can't just go through the motions and check a box.
Right. The intention behind the action matters immensely. The internal engine driving the car is what counts. The text describes true worship as having two essential pillars, or, to use a better metaphor, two wings.
I do love a good metaphor. What are the two wings?
Love and submission. In Arabic, hub and dul.
Love and submission. Okay, those two seem, well, almost contradictory to the modern ear, don't they? We love the idea of love. We are not so big on the idea of submission.
And why do you think that is?
Well, in human relationships, if I have to submit to you, it implies a power imbalance that usually kills love. If I submit, I feel like I'm losing something. I'm being diminished. And if I love you, I want to treat you as an equal. We see submission as humiliation.
And that's precisely why the bird analogy is so important here. The text implies that the act of worship cannot fly to God without both of these wings being equal and fully functional.
Okay, break that down for me. What happens if you have one wing without the other? Let's say I have submission, but I have no love.
Okay, so you follow all the rules. You pray 5 times a day on the dot. You stay away from everything forbidden. You do all the rituals. But you hate it. You feel forced. It's a dry, cold, resentful obedience. There's no joy in it.
That sounds like a miserable employee who hates his boss but desperately needs the paycheck. He punches the clock, does the bare minimum to not get fired, and watches the clock until he can leave.
That's a perfect description. That's not true worship. That's just a burden. It's heavy. It's joyless. Now, flip it. Imagine you have the other wing. You have love, but you have no submission.
So I love God. God is great. I feel really spiritual, but I completely ignore his commands and prohibitions.
Right. My heart is pure. I don't need to actually bow down in prayer. I don't need to avoid alcohol or gossip because, God knows my heart and he knows I love him.
That sounds like, well, it sounds like a lot of the modern spiritual but not religious attitude. I love the universe, but don't you dare tell me what to do.
Exactly. And the text argues that this is also an incomplete, broken form of worship. It's a delusion. How can you claim to love the king, but you completely disregard the king's laws? That's not love. That's just empty sentimentality.
So true ibadah, true worship, requires the perfect blend of the two.
It requires the synthesis of both. The most extreme, perfect love for the beauty and perfection of the Creator, and the most extreme humility in acknowledging your status as the created. When those two mix, the awe of his greatness and the recognition of your smallness, but also the warmth of knowing how loved you are, that is the sweet spot of worship.
It's about acknowledging the hierarchy. He is God, I am not, but filling that vast gap with affection and gratitude rather than just fear and resentment.
Yes. And when you realize that the one you were submitting to is also the one who is Al-Ghani, the self-sufficient, one who has absolutely no need to exploit you, the submission stops feeling like humiliation. It starts to feel like safety. It feels like coming home.
You are anticipating the next section perfectly. This brings us to what I think is the deep dive technical core of this text. The author makes a sharp distinction between two different types of servitude, or ubudiyya, and understanding this distinction completely changes how you view the concept of freedom.
It absolutely does. This is the intellectual anchor of the entire book, in my opinion.
Okay, so there are two types. Let's take them one by one. What is the first type of servitude?
The first is what the text calls general servitude. In Arabic, ubudiyya.
Okay, and who falls into this category? Who is a general servant?
Everybody and everything.
Believers.
Yes.
Atheists.
Yes. The Pope, Richard Dawkins, you, me, the chair you're sitting on.
Wait, hold on. How is an atheist a servant of God? They don't even believe he exists. That seems like a fundamental contradiction.
Well, the text calls this the servitude of compulsion, or quar. It refers to the inescapable fact that every single being in existence is subject to the universal laws of God, what we might call the laws of nature or the laws of creation.
Ah, I see. We're back to biology again.
Biology, physics, chemistry, time. Whether you believe in God or not, you are a servant to biology. You get hungry, you get tired, you age, you eventually die. You have no choice in the matter.
I see. So when gravity pulls a falling apple to the ground, that apple is obeying the law of the Creator, whether it wants to or not.
Precisely. In this category, nobody has free will. You didn't choose your DNA, you didn't choose the family you were born into, and you can't choose to stop your heart from beating just by thinking about it really hard. In this sense, every human is a slave to the design of the Creator.
So in this context, God is known primarily as Rab the Lord, the sustainer, the master of the physical universe.
Exactly. So the statement, I serve no master, is, from this perspective, technically false. You are, at the very least, serving your own biology, which is a complex system you did not design and cannot control.
You're caught in the current of the river of existence. You can't just decide to swim out of the universe.
You can't. That is general servitude. It
Yep.
applies to the rock, the tree, the atheist, and the prophet. It's the baseline condition of all creation.
Okay, so that's the baseline. We are all on the bus, whether we bought a ticket or not. What is the second type?
The second type is specific servitude, ubudiya kasa. This is the servitude of the believers, of those who choose to connect.
And what makes it specific?
Choice. This is the servitude of honor. While every single person is bound by the laws of nature, this specific group voluntarily chooses to bind themselves to the religious laws, the Sharia, the ethics, the rituals, the moral code.
So this is where free will finally enters the picture.
Yes, this is where you connect to God not just as Rab, the Lord of physics, but as Ilah, the deity who is loved, worshipped, and consciously obeyed. And here, right here, is the text's aha moment regarding the nature of freedom.
Right, because usually we think freedom means no rules, no masters. But you're saying this text argues that voluntarily following a set of rules is the highest form of freedom. That sounds like Orwellian doublespeak. Slavery is freedom. Unpack that for us.
It does sound deeply paradoxical at first, but think about human psychology for a moment. The expert here explains, and the text elucidates with great detail, that human beings are wired to serve. We are wired to love and chase and devote ourselves to something.
We are, by nature, worshiping machines.
We are. It's our factory setting. If you don't direct that worship towards the Creator, it doesn't just evaporate. It will latch on to something created.
We serve our careers, we serve our public image, we serve money.
We serve our own egos. We serve our addictions. We serve the approval of other people. The text's argument is that you are going to be a servant to something. That part is unavoidable. General servitude proves you are a dependent being. The only real question is, who or what will be your master?
So the argument is this. You can be a slave to 1,000 little petty masters, your boss, fashion trends, your bank account, your anxieties, or you can be a servant to the one master who created and controls all of them.
Exactly. And by voluntarily binding yourself to the one who is Al-Ghani, the self-sufficient, you actually liberate yourself from the slavery to things that are, like you, in a state of istikar needy independent.
Can you give me a concrete example of this kind of liberation? How does that work in practice?
Sure. Let's think about the fear of other people's opinions. If your sense of self-worth depends entirely on what your boss thinks of you or what people on social media think of you, you are enslaved to them. You are constantly monitoring your behavior, your words, your posts to please them. You are crushed when they criticize you, and you're euphoric when they praise you. Your emotions are on a string, and they hold the puppet master's controls.
You're walking on eggshells constantly.
Constantly. But if you shift your specific servitude to God, you start to operate by His standards of integrity, kindness, and justice. If you fear God's displeasure, you no longer have to live in terror of your boss's mood swings. If you seek God's approval above all, you are freed from the crushing, exhausting weight of needing everyone on Instagram to like your photo.
That is a powerful shift in perspective. It redefines freedom not as the absence of masters, but as choosing the right master.
The one true master. The master who is not a tyrant, and crucially, the master who doesn't need you for anything.
Which brings us perfectly to our next section, the honor of service. The text makes a really stark comparison between a human master like an employer and the divine master.
Yes, and it's a contrast that's really designed to highlight the sheer benevolence of God. Think about a normal human employer. Why do they hire you?
Because they have work they can't do themselves, or they just don't have the time to do it. They have a need, and my labor fills that need.
Right. They hire you out of their own need or weakness or limitation. A king needs soldiers because he can't fight an entire war by himself. A CEO needs accountants because she can't crunch all the numbers and file all the reports. And almost always, the benefit is skewed.
How so?
The master gets the lion's share of the profit, the servant gets a wage, the master builds the empire, the servant helps lay the bricks.
True. I'm just a cog in the machine. If I quit tomorrow, they might scramble for a bit, but they'll just replace me. The fact that they need to replace me proves I was needed for my function.
Now, the text argues the divine dynamic is the complete and total opposite. God commands worship to honor the servant. He calls you to his house, whether that's a literal mosque or the inner state of prayer, not because He needs your help to run the universe, but to grant you the honor of proximity to him.
So it's an invitation, not a conscription.
It's an invitation to receive dignity. The text emphasizes that there is ultimately no honor in serving another human who is just as needy and flawed as you are. It's like a beggar begging from another beggar.
It's just kind of depressing when you put it like that.
But serving the King of Kings, that elevates the servant. It bestows a royal connection upon someone who is, by their nature, poor and needy.
There is a quote mentioned in the outline from the Quran that gets to this point. Whoever strives, strives only for himself.
Yes, that's a core Quranic concept that this source material leans on heavily. The benefit flow is 100%, exclusively towards the human. When you pray, the peace and tranquility that result are for you. When you fast, the discipline and health benefits are for you. When you give charity, the purification of your heart from greed is for you. God remains Al-Ghani. He doesn't get full from your fasting. His treasuries don't get richer from your $2 charity donation. The entire enterprise is for your growth and purification.
It's interesting because when you frame it like that, it treats worship almost like personal hygiene.
Hygiene. Tell me more.
Yeah. You don't take a shower in the morning to do the water company a favor. You don't brush your teeth for the benefit of the toothpaste brand.
Right.
You do it because you need to be clean. You need to be healthy. The benefit is entirely yours.
That's a fantastic analogy. Worship purifies the human soul. The text describes the human as entering the sanctuary of worship to be filled, fixed, and guided. We are the empty vessels. Worship is the act of being filled. We are the broken machine. Worship is the repair shop.
It really takes the pressure off the performance aspect of religion. I think so many people, myself included sometimes, feel like they have to perform for God. Like you're on a cosmic stage and he's the judge with a scorecard, grading your every move.
But if God doesn't need the performance, then the act becomes about the relationship. It becomes about the connection itself. The text mentions that worship is the anchor in the storm of life. If you truly internalize that you are biologically and existentially fragile as a ship on a chaotic ocean, then worship becomes your stability.
Right.
And it stops being a chore, oh, I have to do this, and it starts being a profound relief. Thank God I get to do this, because otherwise I'm just floating in the void with no direction.
So let's try to bring all of this together. We started this deep dive with a paradox. If God is independent, why does he command worship? We've learned that the core of the answer lies in the dynamic between God as Al-Ghani, the absolutely rich and independent, and us as human beings defined by iftikhar, absolute need and poverty.
And we've learned that worship is not just a set of rituals, but a comprehensive lifestyle, an inner state that requires two wings to fly, the wing of complete love and the wing of complete humble submission.
And we've learned that we are all servants by the force of nature. That's general servitude. But that true freedom is found in specific servitude, the choice to connect, which liberates us from being slaves to worldly things.
And finally, that this choice to serve is actually a profound honor bestowed upon us, not a tax levied against us. The benefit is entirely ours.
It's a really compelling framework. It changes the entire posture of the human being from one of paying dues to a powerful being to one of receiving life from a loving source.
It really does. It solves the paradox by completely removing the human ego from the center of the equation. As long as you think you are doing God a favor, religion will always feel like a burden. The moment you realize the need is entirely 100% yours, religion becomes a lifeline.
I want to leave our listener with something to mull over. A final thought that really struck me while we were preparing for this. We've talked a lot about general servitude, that we are all subject to fate, to death, to biology. That's the inescapable reality for everyone.
Right, it's the common ground.
And we talked about specific servitude, the voluntary connection. So here's the provocative thought. Does realizing you are needed by no one, not even your creator, but are deeply wanted by the creator, fundamentally change your sense of self-worth?
That's a profound question.
Because in the human world, we are desperate to be needed. Our value is often tied to our utility. My company needs me. My kids need me. My team needs me. We derive our worth from being essential.
We think, if I disappear, everything falls apart. And that makes us feel important. It validates our existence.
Exactly. But this text says, you aren't essential to the running of the cosmos. God doesn't need you. The universe will run perfectly fine without your help. But he invites you. He wants you. He honors you with conversation and prayer. He loves to hear from you.
There is a unique kind of love, maybe the purest kind, in being wanted when you aren't needed. That's pure grace. That's not utilitarian.
Exactly. If I say, I need you to help me fix my car, I'm nice to you because I need the car fixed. It's fundamentally a transaction. But if I don't need a single thing from you, I have infinite wealth, infinite power, I'm totally self-sufficient, but I still invite you to dinner, and I still want to listen to your voice. That's a relationship.
And that is the invitation of ibadah that this text presents. It's an invitation to a relationship that is based entirely on divine generosity, not on divine necessity.
A lot to think about there. Whether you are deeply religious or just curious about how these theological texts frame the world, understanding this dynamic of need versus independence really clarifies the whole project of worship.
It certainly changed how I read the text. It makes the prayer rug look less like a duty station and more like a sanctuary, a charging station for the soul.
Thanks for diving in with us today. As always, stay curious, stay humble, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.